So, good morning. We're here at the House in Linz at the first day of the Ars Electronica Festival. We're here with Mr. David Sasaki, the leader of the Cloud Symposium. So, good morning, Mr. Sasaki. Could you give us and our viewers a brief introduction about what cloud computing, activism, and intelligence means?
Yeah, basically, if you think about the 20th century, it was kind of all about the globalization of atoms, of things. Manufacturing and natural resources moved all around. Now in the 21st century, it's much more about the globalization of bytes and information and ideas and strategies for activism and for improving the world. And so cloud intelligence is this idea of collective intelligence, where if you collect the individual intelligence of every single person and add it all together, it's much more powerful than any group or individual could be. And cloud computing is the new era of computing where we're entering.
Don't you see a certain danger if all this information is collected on servers on the internet? Because everybody can give this information on these servers, and who verifies if they are right or wrong?
Well, there is a lot of redundancy. So oftentimes when you host a document on Google Documents, for example, then it's not just on one data center. It exists maybe in Oregon, and also it could be on another data center in Fiji. There's an interesting parallel between what's happening in computing right now and what happened in electricity at the turn of the 20th century. And that is, in electricity, there were two different types of ways of transmitting electricity that could have happened. There was direct current and alternating current. Alternating current won out, which allowed for these huge electric projects like nuclear plants and Niagara Falls hydroelectric project. And so there was a centralization of energy into just a few major production sites that then got transmitted to everybody. That's what's happening with computing now too. And you could say, well, wouldn't it have been better if we had smaller electric plants in each neighborhood that transmitted electricity to just individual neighborhoods? Maybe that would have been better because it wouldn't have been so dangerous to have just a few major ones. Mm-hmm. But economically, it just wasn't how it was. And we're seeing the same thing with computing. It's so much cheaper to have huge data centers than it is to have lots of small servers based all around the world that companies are switching to cloud computing. An interesting thing about cloud computing is how is it regulated and what are the laws? And we're just at the very infancy of it right now. And so it's easy to criticize the cloud as it is because it's just developing. But how it's going to be in 5 years, nobody knows. Who guarantees that no one's able to hack into your Gmail account? So far, it's been pretty good. And Google is probably better at securing your privacy than you would be yourself if you hosted your own server. But that's a choice that everyone's going to have to make, where they lie their trust, and if their trust in privacy is worth using a company that's giving it away for free, or if they'd like to set it up for themselves. There are a lot of people who are sharing just about everything. It used to just be the role of journalists like you. You were the appointed person to kind of share what's happening in the world with the rest of the world. And now anybody can do that. What's difficult is that we don't have good filters. And so we look at the internet and we still think of it as a television station or as a radio program where we're supposed to be paying attention to everything that's happening. Of course, that's not how it is. Most of what I publish on the internet is meant for 20 friends of mine.
I saw many clients getting lost in the internet, in this whole fantasy world, and losing the contact to the real world. How do you see this problem, and how do you think we could prevent these people from falling to this whole internet stuff and don't getting out anymore?
Yeah, the internet is oftentimes driven by emotion, I think, and trying to make emotional connections. And it's tricky. Our minds aren't very good at distinguishing between what is love on the internet and when people actually care for us, and when it's just someone pressing a button saying that they like what we posted on Facebook. And those are different. Real friendships compared to small gestures that take place online. And so I think that we each need to be careful. It's a shift in society. We need to be careful not to overshare, like you were talking about, not to get too sucked into the world of games and online, and to get out into the real world and breathe fresh air and go to parks. But we're at such as I was saying before, the infancy of the internet and of the cloud, that I think we're just having to learn that society is changing, that what it means to be human is changing a little bit. And we'll adjust. It's just going to take some time.
The topic of this year's Ars Electronica Festival is human nature, and how does this cloud computing fit with this topic?
It's actually a really nice parallel. This is the first time that Ars Electronica has had two different themes for its symposia. And with cloud intelligence, what we see is all of the intelligence and information from the human mind is getting uploaded to the cloud and stored there. And we're forming a symbiotic relationship with the cloud. So we become smarter because of the information that's available there, and the cloud becomes smarter because of the information that we send to it. Google, for example, wouldn't even work if we as humans didn't put in hyperlinks in our blog posts and our articles. That's how they know what's a good website to trust and what isn't. The latest traffic models, for example, now know when there's traffic on the road because they can tap into our cell phones that are in our pockets. So there's this very symbiotic relationship between being human and the cloud.
I saw you were here at the last year's festival too. Do you have any personal memories or personal connections that you would like to share with the viewers? Connections with the Ars Electronica Festival, or maybe the best moments you had here?
Last year's festival was kind of a complete shock for me because Ars Electronica has a really strong reputation here in Europe, but in the United States it's not as well known. I think in general digital arts is probably not as well known of a field in the United States as it is here. So to come here and see how much energy and creativity by all of the artists and the exhibits and just this community that is here in Ars Electronica that hasn't yet quite spanned the Atlantic Ocean and come to the United States, I think was really exciting. And I hope that there are more people, not just from the United States, but from Africa, from Latin America, and from Southeast Asia that come here to Ars Electronica and it becomes a truly global community.